Why is it so hard to be in a relationship, especially after spiritual awakening? This is a video that I'm going to go into exactly what happens when we start to transform. When we start to transform either emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, and the people around us that are used to us being a certain way suddenly see us changing and what they're going to start to do. So, there's something that you might notice if you are on the journey of self-inquiry, self-growth, self-discovery. It's that there are moments of insight that you might have. Insight on a meditation cushion, out in the woods, out on a mountaintop, in a psychedelic or medicine ceremony, and then you come back to your regular life. You come back to your family, you come back to your girlfriend or boyfriend or your husband or wife, and you find that maybe you can keep and bring some of that back with you. But odds are, before long, you end up in similar kinds of cycles of back and forth bickering, arguments, old stuff starting to come up that you thought that you had seen through, that you had healed, or that you had transcended. But here it is coming up again. What is going on? So this is a very common thing that happens, and it's very frustrating because it makes us wonder, well, what good was all that work that I did on the meditation cushion in the spiritual other world that it felt like I reached? What good was all that if I can't actually bring it into my life? So the thing to understand is real transformation has 3 key steps. And the first one is inspiration. It is the insight, it is the aha awareness, that moment. And we think that inspiration is the same thing as the third step, which is transformation. But it's not, because we're missing the second step in the series. And the second step is the most important. The second step is the challenge. We have the inspiration. Then we have the challenge. And the challenge is when we come back to our lives, we come back to the world. It might happen the very next moment after we've had the inspiration. It could happen the next day. It could happen a week later. But the universe, the world, is going to challenge us, and it's going to ask us, okay, you think you know. You think you really know. Do you really? Can you show up in your life? Can you show up when the rubber meets the road, when the pressure is on, when people are upset at you and don't like how you're showing up all of a sudden? Can you hold steady? Are you, basically, they're calling your bluff. Are you for real? Do you really understand peace and love and oneness? Or did you have just a momentary flash and now you're going to go back to your old habits? If we're able to withstand the challenge, if we're able to stay steady and stay in our center and stay in our core, and allow this to really, this is a process of kind of putting the metal into the fire. This is where it gets baked into us. If we're able to stand by our truth and be authentic and express it, then it becomes the third step. Then we transition to transformation, where this intellectual insight suddenly becomes baked in to our cells, into our bones, into our way of being. And that is the goal. That is what we really want and what we're really looking for. But really, it only comes through that challenge, through that test that we have to pass through. Now, most people, when they get to stage 2, they turn back because they don't expect it. They don't expect the world to come at them that hard or with that much pressure. They think that the inspiration is enough, but it's not. The inspiration is seeing the light. The inspiration, we have a momentary expansion of consciousness and we apprehend the truth, but then the work comes in actually sitting down or walking out into our lives and then living out that truth. That is the embodiment of it. So when you have a moment of insight, inspiration, transformation, insight really, not transformation yet, know what it is and know what to expect. The world is going to challenge you. Now, this challenge will come usually from two places. It'll come from inside of you and it'll come from outside of you. From inside of you, it's pretty straightforward. It's those old beliefs that you have about yourself, those old doubts, the self-criticism. You're not really serious. Like, this isn't practical. How are you going to make a living? How are you going to live your life? All these old ideas, old beliefs, things that maybe your parents told you, or teachers told you, or society told you. So that's one place where the pressure and the challenge is going to come from. But there's another place, and it's going to be usually your close relationships. The people that are closest to you, your spouse, your girlfriend or boyfriend, your family, your close friends, people that know you. And it's going to come from them, not because they don't love you necessarily, not because they don't care for you, but because when we are in relationship to anyone, we are embedded in a system. And what we're doing is we're playing a role for the other people in this system. This is an idea from family therapy and systems thinking. And when one part, well, before that, all systems in society, inside our bodies, and in nature in general, all systems are looking to maintain homeostasis. They're looking for balance. Now, if you suddenly show up and something inside of you changes, let's say you are done putting up with other people's outbursts or arguments or bullshit, you're just done with it. You're not going to tolerate that anymore. And suddenly you start acting that way. Something is going to change. People will notice around you that something has changed. And they may not like it. Probably they won't like it. Probably they will look at that change and be frightened by it, because suddenly it means there's a change in the system. And that means if one part of the system changes, the other parts also have to change their behavior to maintain balance, to create a new harmony. And so what other parts of the system, this could be your friends, your parents, your close relations, will try to do first, usually, is they will issue a change back request, which is exactly what it sounds. I want you to change back into how you used to be, because that is what I expect. That is what has been working for us. And even though it's not perfect, maybe it's not ideally what people want or imagine a relationship to be, it has been working and it feels safe and is getting needs met in some degree. So that change back request will usually not be an explicit communication. They won't say, I liked how you used to be before. They might. But they might start to do things differently. They might get angry at you. They might pull away. They might start to criticize this new way of being. They might start to criticize maybe the psychologist that you're working with, or the healer, or the spiritual text that you were reading, or the spiritual teacher you've been working with. And this is something that you need to expect. Whenever you enter into really transformative work, and you go out and you do something either on your own or in a group or with a teacher, and you come back into your relationships really changed, the people around you are going to be afraid. Is this for real? What does this mean? Do you still love me? Do I have to change now? There's all of this turmoil and chaos that can happen. And there can be a lot of this pressure on you to change back, to revert. You can either, at this point, contract and go back to your old ways, in which works temporarily, but inside of you, you know that you've seen a part of the truth. You've seen something, a way of being that is more honest, authentic, and true. And you're back living this old lie, essentially. And that can only work for so long. The second option that you have is to leave the system, to go and remove yourself from these relationships. And some people choose to do that. They end a romantic relationship. They, distance themselves from their parents or their friends. Sometimes people, give up drinking alcohol, or doing certain drugs or gambling, and then suddenly they can't interact with their friends anymore because they realize that, our relationship was built on alcohol and making fun of other people, and suddenly I can't connect in that way. That's not authentic with my new understanding of myself and the world. And so you those friendships no longer work anymore. That glue and that bond is no longer functional. So this is something that the first option is either you can retract to your old ways, which is temporarily sustainable but not long term. You can remove yourself, or you can stay in those relationships, but you can refuse to acknowledge or change back into your old behavior. You can essentially stay strong. Now, if you choose to do this, expect a storm. Expect people to storm at you. They are not going to be happy about it at first. But this is how systems change. This is how we change the world. When we shift, when we take on a new role, a new way of being, we have to be in integrity and in honesty with ourselves. And that usually means that other people are seeing us be in integrity with ourselves, and that makes them realize that maybe they're not in full integrity. That starts to make them realize that they have shadow or shit that they are not addressing inside of them, wounds or pain, or they're overly attached to their job or success or whatever it might be, and then they are forced to look at and confront the difficulty inside of them. And people do not want to do this. But, if the relationship is strong enough, if the bonds of love and togetherness are strong enough, if you are surrounded by those kinds of people, when you move to this new way of being, others will come with you. That is how a system changes. That is how a system shifts upward and becomes more healthy, more aligned, more harmonious, and less stuck in this kind of collusion of, I'm going to play small over here so you don't have to feel bad about the failures in your life. And I don't have to feel bad about not living up to my values because I see you not living up to your values. And so we're kind of in this marsh of mediocrity that nobody's really happy with, but everyone is kind of protecting themselves because, that person over there, my friend, is, he drinks 5 beers a day. I drink 2, so I'm at a pretty good place. There's this collusion that goes on all the time between people that keep us stuck and keep us mired in our own bullshit, in our own lies. So this is the hard work. This is the hard work. When we have an insight, when we have a transformation, again, this could be in a therapist's office, this could be on a silent Vipassana retreat, you come back and that insight will be challenged. That challenge will usually come both from inside of you and from outside of you. And really, that challenge will come from your friends, from your family, from those closest to you. And you have to weather it. You have to stay in your integrity, stay strong in your authentic self. If you are able to weather the challenge, then the transformation sets in. Then that insight becomes embodied. It has been tested, it has been proven, and you know it. You know that you can handle the heat, you know that you can handle the scrutiny, you are it. And once that happens, once that solidification happens, the rest of the system, the other people in your life, if they really care about you, if they want to be with you and in your life, they will realize that they also have to change if they want to stay with you, if they want to be together with you. Otherwise, they will be stuck in a place of psychological dissonance because they see you doing this shift, they see you living this life, and they can feel the change, they can see that, and if they want to be with you, that light will also start to inspire them or confront them, sometimes painfully, with the things that they need to look at in themselves. So, with all that said, when we have a spiritual awakening, this is basically like the most extreme version of this kind of process, where suddenly we're not only a little bit changed, we don't only have a little bit of insight. Suddenly we recognize that we are not ourselves. We are not the person, the identity, all of the values that we thought we made up our lives. We are not that. And so the challenge can be pretty intense. And if we are not in a place of real assertion, of an ability to assert our energy, assert our authenticity, if we're not used to that, we can very quickly lose that awakened state and go back into a place of defensiveness, into a place of habitual, conditioned action. And this is a very common thing. It doesn't mean that we have lost that access to that awakening permanently, but if we can't show up in our relationships, in the world, with strangers, with an ability to assert ourselves with integrity, with confidence, this is how I am. This is, yes, this is the truth. I'm not going back on it. I'm not trying to play small or obscure my light because it makes you uncomfortable. No, this is the truth. That is not an easy thing to do. That is not an easy thing to do. But it is an essential thing to do. And in fact, a lot of spiritual work, a lot of spiritual progress, and a lot of progress really in our psyche, in our emotions, in life, can only happen in that moment when we come back into relationship with other people. We can sit on a mountaintop, we can sit on a meditation cushion, read books, and watch YouTube videos all day long and get all of this intellectual knowledge. But relationships are where the rubber meets the road, because they are mirrors to us. They show us where we are still afraid, where we are still willing to clam back up, go back into our safety. Relationships are the most scary and most vulnerable things that we have to deal with. And yet they are also some of the most, the places of greatest growth and greatest progress that we can find. There's one point that I want to make in closing here, that relationships are, especially in spiritual life, we don't really have many good models for them. If you think about it, a lot of the spiritual kind of icons of the major religions, like Jesus Christ, wasn't in a romantic relationship. The Buddha was not in a romantic relationship. The Moses and, Muhammad, like, we don't see them talking with their parents. We don't see them, with kids. We don't see them interacting in these familial units where so much of the conflict and struggle actually happens in human life. We see them in these kind of like either very mystical or religious, kind of interactions with God or with, their followers, which in some ways is, in many ways, actually easier than going to your parents and kind of like being loving and compassionate and kind, especially if there's a lot of history of difficulty and struggle from your childhood, from your youth. So we don't really have a lot of good examples in religious literature or mythology of relationships that, at all, much less, the intimacy of relationships that go well. There are a few examples like Abraham and Sarah and, a few others out there, but they don't really go into the detail of it. They don't, we're left kind of inferring and wondering about, okay, well, what happens when you have an argument? How do you patch things up? How do you, what does that actually look like? So relationships, again, these are the places that are going to challenge us the most when we have a shift and a transformation. But they also, and I want to mention this, they also are gold mines for insight. They're gold mines for our own growth. Because relationships, if they're true, if there's a real connection, a deep connection with another person, and we feel a love and a compatibility, that usually has a profound wisdom to it. And that wisdom is based in the fact that not only do we match up with them in a lot of positive, healthy ways, we're usually also at odds with each other and kind of like poking each other in all of our wounds and exactly the places where we're hurt most from our past. And instead of what most people do is they go into argument, they go into combat around it. But if we stay vulnerable, if we stay conscious of what is happening, why we're getting so activated, so afraid, so repulsed, so angry with the person that we seem to love and care about just a moment before, just the week before, if we stay conscious, we'll start to realize that they're telling us and showing us the places in ourselves that we still need to heal, the places in ourselves that we still need to attend to. And in order to have a successful relationship, both romantically and with our family, and really with anyone that we meet in the world, we need to attend to and listen to the lessons that relationships are giving us. Sometimes those lessons are telling us that maybe we're too rigid, too inflexible, and we need to relax and loosen up. Sometimes it's showing us where we have a trauma around family, some wounding around the way that our mother treated us or relied on us too much emotionally, or the way that our father yelled at us, and so we're avoiding conflict and argument as much as we can, which seems like a spiritual thing to do, but is actually a way of spiritually bypassing the need and ability to confront, to really be authentic and confront another person. This is not to say to go angry and go off on somebody, but to really show up in our integrity, set boundaries, and keep boundaries. We're not taught this, especially in the spiritual traditions, but also in our everyday lives. We're not taught this in school. We're not taught this by the world. So we need to really pay attention when we are in a relationship, especially a romantic relationship that is really beautiful, has a lot of love, and then something goes wrong, and there's antagonism, battling, all these difficult feelings. That is a gift. That is a gift. There is something that this relationship is trying to show you and reveal to you. Listen to it. Listen to what is going on here, because if you are up for the challenge, if you are able to protect yourself enough to be able to see and hear what needs to happen, and then open up in a strong, authentic, and loving way, you are going to be able to grow in leaps and bounds, and your relationship will be better for it. Again, just in closing, relationships are hard. They're going to challenge you. They're going to rock you, especially as you start to grow and change and transform. But they are crucibles, they are mirrors, they are gifts. Even the challenges, even the arguments, even the strife can be a massive gift. So look out for it and appreciate it. And if this is something that you want some more help with, I work with people all the time, one-on-one, and relationships are the number one place that we go to for spiritual growth and insight, because that is where the cracks show most evidently. So if you want some help with that, schedule a consult with me in the link below in the description, and I'd love to help you out. I'd love to work with you.